A few years ago, I attended a spiritual retreat here in Indianapolis. It was a 3.5 day retreat held at a Presbyterian church. And throughout the retreat, there were various speakers that came and made presentations. And during one of the talks, there was a gentleman, a white gentleman, who was sharing the story about how God had directed him to start a ministry of racial reconciliation. So he was going to be doing work to help heal the relationships between black people and white people. And I don't remember the gentleman's name, so for the sake of the story, I'm going to call him John. And as John told the story, he described how God had directed him, or he was attending a meeting, and God actually just supernaturally made it known to him that one of the African American men that was present there was going to be his partner in ministry. And I don't remember everything that John described, so I'll share what I do remember. John said that he and the African American man and some other men went to a room and they were praying, and there was a lot of stuff happening. Supernatural is the word that John used to describe some of it. And he said that, he was kind of compelled by the Holy Spirit to go and place his hands on the African American man. And then John said that there were all these words in his head. And when he said that, when he used that phrase, I identified with what he meant, because I too have had the experience of words in my head. And I don't know exactly what it was like for John, but when I've had the experience, they were just words but no sound. And so it's kind of like when you have thoughts in your head, if you're just sitting and thinking silently, there are words in your head but no sound, except for it's not your words and it's not your thoughts. It's from another source. And one time I recall that happening to me was right after I had moved here to Indianapolis. So in my early 20s, I had stopped going to church. I'd become far from God, and I was living as I saw fit, and I was just doing my own thing. And when I moved here to Indianapolis for my job, one of my neighbors that I met became friends with me, and he took me all around the city and introduced me to his friends. And because he went to church and his friends went to church, I went to church. That's what got me going back to church again. And it was interesting because even though I had been out of church for a number of years, I was rather arrogant, and I would pray for the other people, my newfound friends. I would pray for them, and I would pray, for their spirituality, for their spiritual growth, that they would obey God, that they would just do the right thing. And each time I would pray, the word I would go through my head. I would be praying for someone, and the word I would be in my head. And it happened, it seemed like each time I would pray, and I remember being at church and just praying for people, and it was I. And then finally I realized that God was telling me that what I was praying for those other people were things that I myself needed to do. Because I had been far from God. I was just doing things I shouldn't have been doing. And I too needed to return, and I too needed to grow spiritually. And once I figured that out, God asked me to surrender my life to Him. And I remember being very nervous and afraid about doing that because I didn't know what that entailed. And I thought about it, I considered it for easily weeks, if not months. And God just kept saying, surrender your life to me. And pardon me if I get emotional. And I finally said yes. And I have no regrets, because I have come to know that God is kind, He's compassionate, He's patient with us. And I never want to return to the life that I was living before.